I'm Jan Griffiths, and I'm the host of the Automotive Leaders Podcast, where we bring you conversations that matter, conversations that help you prepare for the future in the auto industry. I'm the champion for culture change in this industry. We shine the spotlight on those leaders who practice those leadership skills that we need for the future. The next episode starts right now. Q2 is here. Now what? I'm sure that's what we're all saying, privately and maybe publicly. Wow, Q1 was a wild ride. 2025 was a wild ride. But here's the thing. Are you going into your Q1 quarterly review meetings or maybe preparing for Q2 using the same playbook? And what I mean by that is the same way of thinking, the same way of making decisions, the same way of operating. Are you using the same playbook that you used the month before that, the year before that, and the decade before that? Has that playbook changed? I'm guessing maybe not. This is the time to blow up that playbook. It is the time to question everything. And today I'm going to cover 5 things that we need to think about as we prepare for Q2. Number 1, the geopolitical storm. Woo! Tariffs. Well, tariffs was a huge impact for us last year and is continuing to be so for 2026. We do not know what's around the corner. We do not know what the next wave of tariffs will be. The Supreme Court struck down the IEEPA tariff decision, and now we're all scrambling trying to figure out how to get refunds, let alone get recovery from the monies we've already spent in the supply base from the OEMs. That's still an ongoing issue. And now we've got this whole refund scenario in front of us, and we all know the transactional detail that's required to pull that off is agonizing. And if that wasn't enough, we've also got a war going on in Iran. Yeah, we've got a global oil crisis. We've just pivoted away from EVs. It's too soon to tell if the oil crisis will make us switch back towards EVs. I don't know. It's too soon to tell. And we've got, yes, another chip shortage on the horizon. That could be coming up. And who knows? I'm sure we'll have some other supply chain disasters. And then we've got USMCA. Yeah, that's coming up for renegotiation in just a few months, in July. That's going to demand a lot of attention. And I actually have Colin Bird coming on the podcast in a few weeks, and he is the Consul General for Canada. If you have any questions you want me to ask Colin, please drop me an email or send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll be glad to put them to him. In addition to that, we've got this constant pressure from China. We keep talking about China as an existential threat. Well, it really is. And my fear is that we're not seeing it. The alarm bells are not ringing loud enough because we don't actually see the vehicles around us. Now, Canada has just allowed 49,000 Chinese OEM vehicles into the country. And I'll be really interested to see what happens when they start to cross the border into the US and the American public sees these vehicles. I wonder if that will change anything. And then who knows? We all know that it's a matter of when a Chinese OEM will enter the US. Yeah, we're holding back right now. The tariff barrier is keeping the Chinese out. But it's just a matter of time before a Chinese OEM offers a huge sack of cash to buy an existing facility and employ American workers and then enter the country. So we've got that's yet to play out. What this all means is that we have to be ready for anything. And it never used to be that way, did it? We always knew the rules of the game. We knew how to think, we knew how to act, we knew how to behave. We knew how the OEMs behaved. We knew what the forecasting looked like. We knew exactly what we had to do. We had a playbook. But that is no longer true. That is no longer the environment we live in. We lived in an environment where there was some level of certainty. And I feel like sometimes we're waiting for that certainty to come. Oh, if we could just get over this next hurdle, then everything will be okay. It's never going to be okay. This constant level of change is here to stay. It's our playbook that has to change. We have to stop waiting for clarity. Clarity is not coming. The only response to all of this is resilience. Now, before you roll your eyes, and I know we've been using and abusing that word way too much lately, but what is resilience? It's the ability to absorb shocks, pivot fast, and keep executing while the rules change around you. And that's really, really hard. But what it means is reinvention of everything that we do. Every process that we have, every decision that we make, I guarantee you, it's too slow. And that leads us to number 2, which is the Reinvention Mandate. What do you do when the ground is shifting? Do you hunker down? Some of us do. That's not the right answer. No, it's time to reinvent. And I don't mean incremental improvement, little steps of improvement. I mean big, bold leaps. And by that, I want to focus on speed and processes. You know, many years ago, I went through training with Allied Signal called TQS, Total Quality Through Speed. And they taught us to take a process, tear it apart, and reduce the speed or the time that it takes to complete that process. And I think we need TQS back. I think that we need to tear into our processes, understanding what processes we really need, what processes we don't need. And let's put a bold target out there to reduce the time by 50%. Look, our Chinese competitors already have it in the design phase. They can already take a vehicle from concept to launch in half the time the legacy OEMs can. And if you don't believe me, follow Terry Wachowski, the president of Caresoft. He has got oodles of data to support how and why the Chinese OEMs are faster than we are. When is the last time you challenged your team to reduce the process time? Maybe even reduce a decision-making process, eliminate it altogether. And we can't talk about reinvention without talking about AI. We're struggling with AI. It's okay to say that. We are. We're trying to understand how to best use it. Think of AI as the reinvention accelerator. It can help, but you can't rely on it completely. And when I think about AI, I like the tagline that QAD uses. Now, most of you know that I also co-host and produce a podcast for QAD called Auto Supply Chain Champions. And I love their tagline and their approach with AI because they say this: you have to take your ERP system from a system of record to a system of action. And I love that quote because it tells us about the mindset shift. So often we look at our process, our systems, and our data, and it's a system of record. It's just recording stuff. It's not actually giving us possible solutions as to what's next, what's the next action. And that's what agentic AI can do when it's properly understood, implemented, and executed. That's the kind of thinking that we need to use AI to help us with reinvention. Number 3, trust and transparency. All right, I'm going to have to be brutally honest here. I am sick and tired of talking about trust and transparency because it seems to be falling on deaf ears. I believe in these 2 principles of doing business, of leading, of culture, trust and transparency. If we really want to get to speed, we're going to have to put data and decision-making, push it downstream, and trust people. A lot of our systems and processes are built up around mistrust. Somebody made a mistake 10, 15, 20 years ago, and now we've got 15 different approval levels for something that should not be. Trust and transparency starts with the OEMs, and some are better than others. And you know exactly what I'm saying. But the day of reckoning is coming. It really is. It's coming in the form of the WRI scorecard from Plant Moran. Yes, that's coming up next month in May. And we'll know who's winning and who's losing that battle. The OEMs who truly operate with trust and transparency will be able to get that competitive advantage of speed of decision-making, much faster than those who don't. And why is trust and transparency so important to speed? Because when you have that, when suppliers feel safe and trusted, and that they have the right data and you're not trying to play games with them, then they will pivot quickly. And that goes right to the heart of resilience. When you're trying to absorb those shocks, you need to have strong relationships in place. You can't afford to go through a 25-step process to approve an additional product or a new supplier. In times of need, you need to move quickly, and trust and transparency is right at the foundation, which is right to the heart of resilience. Trust isn't soft. It's a P&L lever. It really is. And in a year when everything is uncertain, tariffs, trade agreements, costs, oil crisis, the OEMs with strong supplier relationships can lean into those partnerships to weather the storm together. The ones without, they're going to be on their own. And the WRI results next month will tell us who's doing it and who's faking it, who's just talking about it. Number 4, authentic leaders are winning. Yes, they are. Command and control leaders are not. In the last episode of the podcast, I had the pleasure of speaking with Laurie Lancaster, Vice Chair at Automotive Mobility. And she said something that has really stayed with me. And I'll read this quote to you. We've struggled recently with new leaders coming in who are afraid, maybe, to say, hey, I need help with this. And they wait a little too long to ask for that help because they come from different environments. No one's going to penalize you for that. It makes it so hard when you wait too long. That's a command and control leadership hangover. When people are afraid to say that they need help because they just don't have that environment where they can speak up. There's fear in the air. We can no longer have that. People need to be able to ask for something, alert the organization when something's wrong, because we're going to have to move quickly. We're not going to have time to play these command and control games based on fear. People who've been trained to hide problems instead of raising them and to protect themselves instead of protecting the business, that mentality is a speed killer. Command and control is too slow. When you've got hierarchy and you've got silos, the wasted time going across all of those different functions for decision making, it slows everything down. So we've got to tear into these processes and the way that we make decisions with a view and a mindset to increase speed and to empower people. And let's remember this. Culture is not soft. Culture is the operating system. It is how we behave. It is how we make decisions. It is our playbook. It's time for us to rewire our operating system. Number 5 is to stop customizing what nobody cares about. And I'll drop a link to the recent McKinsey report called The North American Automotive Industry's Road to Resilience. And in this report, they make the case where they talk about how we love to over-customize components that consumers, so consumers of the vehicle, don't care about. If you think about it, we in this industry, we love to agonize over every single component for every single OEM, for every single model. That kind of thinking has to change. And I've heard, again, Terry Wojciechowski from CareSoft talk about this time and time again. Why do we agonize over the things that really the consumer doesn't care about? And I think along with that is this idea of leveraging components. So the OEMs, the Chinese OEMs, we know they work together. They don't customize every single one for every single OEM and every single platform. And I think that's a huge area of opportunity. And John McElroy wrote an article about this not too long ago, which I will also find and drop into the show notes. But again, it comes back to this idea of collaboration. How are we collaborating together as an industry? As an industry. Because I firmly believe that we're going to have to do that and change our thinking so that we can survive. And along those lines of collaborating around certain components and areas of the vehicle, I'll have the president of Horse North America on the show in a few months, and we'll be talking more about that mindset and how that works. On a personal note, a couple of updates. I have recently taken on an additional role of executive advisor with Seraph, and I couldn't be more excited about this. Seraph is a global manufacturing and operations consulting firm. And before you roll your eyes and go, oh no, consulting firm, and think PowerPoints and throwing young kids into engagements on a manufacturing shop floor, that is absolutely not what they do. I would not be associated with a company that did that. I am thrilled to be associated with Seraph because I have worked with them in a past life. I was a client of theirs, and they are laser focused on manufacturing, supply chain, operational improvement. They know how to do it. They have the playbook and they do it well. And you'll be hearing more of that in the future. A different topic, video. Last year, I put myself through a 90-day training program on YouTube. And you might think, wow, why would you do that? Look, the podcast isn't going away. The podcast is an audio format. People like to listen to podcasts. They also like to read the transcripts, which, by the way, we have cleaned by a human being to make sure that they are correct for your reading pleasure. But in addition to that, some people like to actually watch the interviews and see the interaction. And I love to do the podcast interviews one-on-one, face-to-face. And you might have seen in my social media posts lately more of a professional photography studio kind of environment with tall chairs. And I am actually in the studio with the person I'm interviewing. And there's no barrier in front of us. There's no table. There's no nothing. It's just the two of us sitting, looking at each other, having a conversation. And you can see the body language. You can feel the energy and you can see the interaction. So the YouTube presence, we've really upped our game there. And we'll drop a link into the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is under my name. It's Jan Griffiths, Automotive Leaders. And if you have any feedback for me for improvements, I welcome it. Bring it on. So let me bring all of this together. We're in the middle of a geopolitical storm that is not going away. No, it is not. Trade agreement uncertainty, the relentless pace of Chinese competition. That's the operating environment. You don't get to choose the conditions. Remember that. You only get to choose how you respond. And that's true for everything in life. Resilience without reinvention is just endurance. Remember that. You'll survive, but you won't win. Reinvention without trust is just a memo that nobody really reads. The trust brings it to life. Trust has to come from the heart and the soul. You have to mean it. You can't just stand on stage and talk about trust with suppliers with no feeling behind it. And if you're still customizing things that nobody cares about, you're just spending money to stand still or even take a few steps backwards. So I'm asking you directly, what are you going to do differently this quarter, Q2 2026? Ask yourself, your team, your business that question. And here's some things that you could do. Identify one decision that can be pushed down tomorrow. Find it, name it, push it down. Don't look for reports or analysis. Make the decision. Ask the organization for input and push it down. I recently talked to a group of people about this, and you know what came back as an area of opportunity was purchasing, which kind of stings a little because most of you know that's most of my background. But is that an area for improvement where you can start to push decisions down with a view towards speed? Number 2, name one process that slows you down and kill it. You know the one, the approval that nobody reads, the report that nobody uses. Every organization is full of them. Find it, relentless focus, and kill it. Cut it, get rid of it. And number 3, have an honest conversation about culture, about your playbook, about what you're going to do to rewire your playbook at an executive level. That's where it starts. It's time. It's time to do all those things that you've always been wanting to do. You know where the waste is in your systems. You know what we've got to do to speed up those systems, to make decisions faster, to empower people, how to create resilient organizations. We really do, but we need the mindset and the relentless focus to make it happen. I'll be with you every step of the way. And don't forget, be you, your 100% beautiful self, and lead with gravitas, the hallmark of authentic leadership. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Jan Griffiths Automotive Leaders YouTube channel and share with your friends. And we'll see you in the next episode.